Aloha and welcome to Threads of Aloha. I am Abraham Kaleo Parrish. I'm a geospatial data visualization librarian here in Washington, D.C. at the Library of Congress in the Geography and Map Division. I was actually born and raised in Hawaii. I'm from the Big Island of Hawaii on the Mauka side of Punamoku in Oahu, Ahupua'a, and I'm still a part-time kama'aina. This event is part of Fashion at the Library of Congress, the threads that connect us, the library's 2026 America 250 Fashion Initiative, exploring how style tells the American story through creativity, culture, identity, and design. This fun special initiative is made possible through support from the Ford Foundation. You too can support programs like this by visiting loc.gov/give to donate and become a member of the Friends of the Library of Congress, or FLOC. Today, we are joined by Dr. Andy Reilly. He is a professor in the Fashion Design and Merchandising program at the University of Hawaii, Mānoa. Dr. Reilly's research area focuses on historic and cultural aspects of the fashion industry in Hawaii. He has written 7 books and 40 academic papers and is currently working on a book about fashion in the Hawaiian Islands. He has served as president of the Textile and Apparel Programs Accrediting Commission and president of the International Textile and Apparel Association. He is currently the vice president of the Pacific Artisan Collective and a fellow of the International Textile and Apparel Association. In his presentation, he will share with us about ethnic identity and its relation to Aloha shirt design as nonverbal communication of resident versus tourist. You can enter any questions or comments in the Q&A while Dr. Reilly gives his presentation, and they will be read after his presentation has concluded. The questions or comments can be about Aloha shirts in particular, or more broadly about Hawaiian fashion. Just as a reminder, this session is being recorded. And with that, take it away, Dr. Reilly.
Great, thank you, and aloha to everybody. Thank you for attending this presentation. Today I'm going to talk about the Aloha shirt. I'll provide a history of its development alongside the history of Hawaii's colonization and resulting tensions that led to my supposition that consumers select Aloha shirts based on ethnicity and a desire to minimize differences. I'm sorry. There we go. Okay. I'm going to start with our theory of how I'm understanding the process of what's going on here. And I use social identity theory. Social identity theory posits that in-group versus out-group behavior is an outcome of status and an individual's identification with the group. It suggests that social identity is established through a process of categorization, identification, and social comparison. Categorization occurs when groups of people are classified together according to a common characteristic, say ethnicity or age or geographic region or class. Identification occurs when a person aligns with the group based on a common characteristic. And social comparison, that is, evaluating one group against another, results in positive or negative distinctiveness. Positive distinctiveness is when one group is viewed as better than the other, and negative distinctiveness is when a group is viewed as worse off than the other. Those who are part of the in-group are given more preferential treatment than those in the out-group, and this is known as in-group bias. Negative distinctiveness can be reduced or eliminated by minimizing differences. I argue that white residents who move to Hawaii turn to the Hawaiian shirt to minimize differences as an outsider. And to start with, let's look at the ethnic makeup of Hawaii. The United States Census Bureau identifies the state's diverse population using racial categories of American Indian, Alaskan Native, Asian American, Black or African American, Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, and white. However, those who call the islands home generally use ethnicity to categorize people into one of 3 groups: Kanaka Maoli, who are the native Hawaiians who claim indigenous ancestry; local, or residents of early immigrants to Hawaii; and haole, the Hawaiian and local term for white. People have been inhabiting what today are known as the Hawaiian Islands since the early 8th century AD. Contact with British explorer Captain James Cook on January 18th, 1778, brought trade to the islands. In the 19th century, these items traded were Hawaiian sandalwood and sugar for European clothing and textiles. Opportunities for trade in commodities also heralded the arrival of people from other lands to the Hawaiian Islands. By the middle of the 19th century, plantations were established to grow agricultural crops. For 100 years, starting in 1850, various immigrant groups were sought for labor, and in total, about 400,000 immigrants arrived in waves from Asia, Europe, North America, and the Pacific. Although plantation owners could recruit from one country, recruiting from many allowed for labor control and dominance of Euro-Americans over other ethnic groups. For example, the practice of allocating jobs and pay by ethnicity ensured ethnic divisiveness. Ethnic groups were pitted against one another so that they would not align together against the Haole elite. As Judge William L. Lee, president of the Royal Agricultural Society, advised in 1852, to those planters who can afford it, I would say procure as many laborers as you can and work them by themselves, as far as possible from the natives. And you will find, if well managed, the example will have a stimulating effect on the Hawaiian, who is naturally jealous and ambitious to outdo him. The United States had a fervent interest in the Hawaiian Islands for military purposes, and American businessmen had an interest in the Hawaiian Islands for economic purposes. Missionaries, politicians, and entrepreneurs began to influence Hawaiian kingdom politics and force changes within the system, including altering the land tenure system to allow for private ownership and combining the Hawaiian legal system with Euro-American style laws. The Hawaiian Patriotic League, composed mostly of non-Hawaiians, drafted a new constitution and forced King Kalakaua to sign it in 1887. This constitution, which was known as the Bayonet Constitution, stripped the monarchy of much of its power. The Hawaiian kingdom was overthrown in 1893 when Queen Liliuokalani was forced to abdicate under threat of military action against the Hawaiian people. This made way for the United States to annex Hawaii, which became a territory in 1898 and a state in 1959. To understand ethnicity, let's look at the concept of local identity. Local is a term used by residents to describe people of mixed ethnicities who grew up in Hawaii and are descendants of early immigrants. Local identity incorporates, quote, as Roher argues, certain elements of Hawaiian culture and resistance to Haole hegemony, end quote. However, it was not until the 1930s that local identity was solidified due to the Macy case, where a Haole woman accused 5 young Hawaiian and local men of rape. The trial ended in a mistrial due to dubious evidence and a conflicting timeline, and 2 of the accused were subsequently kidnapped. One was beaten, the other was shot and killed. The woman's mother, husband, the woman herself, and 2 naval friends were charged with the kidnapping and murder. And this led to, the trial led to manslaughter convictions and 10 years in prison. However, immediately after, the governor commuted their sentences to 1 day, and the convicted left the islands. The Macy case reinforced local oppression and created a collective identity. After the trial, local ethnic newspapers criticized Haole leaders from the United States Territory of Hawaii as traitors and emphasized the difference between Haole and other ethnic groups against the background of class and power. According to Rosa, local signifies a historic relationship based on a commonality among working class people of color and their difference from whites. When white people move to Hawaii, they experience their whiteness differently than how they experience it in the mainland U.S. The colonial history of the United States and the multi-ethnic population of the Hawaiian Islands and the categorization of people as Hawaiian, local, or Haole combine to create tension with regard to ethnicity and how it is embodied and performed on the Hawaiian Islands. The word Haole in Hawaiian means foreign, but it has come to mean white person, or as Rover argues, acting white. Rover identifies 3 classifications of Haole: The dumb haole, or white person who is unaware of local customs, but not necessarily mean-spirited, they're just uninformed. The bad haole, or person who displays conspicuous disrespect or contempt for Hawaiian and local people and culture. I want to say that this is not the term that is actually used, but this is the term I'll be using for this presentation. And the last one is the good haole. The good haole is a white person who embraces local culture and learns about the complex history of the islands. I argue that white people may turn to the Hawaiian shirt to demonstrate that they are, in fact, the good haole. South Park poked fun at dumb and bad haoles in a 2012 episode called Going Native. In it, one of the characters, Butters, learns that he is quote-unquote Hawaiian because he was born in Hawaii. His parents explain the ritual of the haole people, drinking chi-chis, eating poke from Safeway, and marrying at the Fern Grotto. He learns his grandparents are Hawaiian royalty because they were in Hawaii at the time of the king. That is Elvis. They give him a sacred treasure, a grocery store discount card called Mahalo Rewards. Butters now must perform a ritual and return to Hawaii, where the remainder of the episode involves the characters attending a luau, wearing kukui nut lei and aloha shirts, playing golf, eating plate lunch, calling mainland tourists haoles, and nearly starting a war. Highly regarded shirt manufacturer Ren Spooner offers a Mahalo reward shirt with scenes from the show. And right now I want to show you a clip from the series. We'll illustrate the concept of dumb and bad haoles. It's just a short 3-minute clip.
Well, where you?
Can I help you with anything?
Yeah. I'm not sure where I'm supposed to go.
Okay, were you with a cruise ship or a land tour group?
Oh, I'm not a tourist. I'm a native Hawaiian.
Butterscotch?
Yeah?
Welcome home, young keiki. Your parents said you would be coming for your ceremony. Who's this?
Oh, this is my friend Kenny.
Butters, Native Hawaiians don't really approve of haoles coming to their ceremonies.
Oh, please, if it weren't for him, I couldn't have come.
Very well, we shall speak with the chief of our island and see. Come now.
You folks are all native Hawaiians, too?
Yes, my wife Patty and I have been coming to Kauai for almost 5 years. And Bill and Donna actually own a timeshare in Poipu.
Yes, but Poipu is getting pretty overrun with tourists, I'm afraid.
Let us eat.
Oh, yes, let us eat. Aloha, 5 orders of salmon, please.
What's Simon?
It's one of the foods of our people.
Oh, I get 20% off. I'm a native. Here's my Mahalo rewards card. Mahalo. Come on, you frickin' tourists. Jesus, buy a postcard. These are the ancient ruins of our ancestors. They say the spirit of the king is still in there.
You must stay away from this place. It is kapu. Kapu. That means taboo, especially the haoles.
That there is Bubba's Burgers. In Hawaii, us natives say Bubba's, bro. Here's the Sheraton, just another mega hotel for the throngs of tourists. Here's where many of us natives live. The Sheraton Residences. It's all right, we're natives. Protector-in-Chief, I present to you the keiki Butterscotch.
Ah, Stephen and Linda's child. Last time I saw you, you were the size of a coconut. Who's the haole?
Okay, so within that concept, I want to now turn back to the Aloha shirt, the development of the Aloha shirt. Origin stories of the Aloha shirt abound. A group of boys at Punahou School asked a tailor to make a shirt from kimono fabric, or it came from rice bag shirts or palaka shirts worn by plantation laborers, or it was inspired by the Barong Tagalog shirts of the Philippines, or the 1,000-mile shirt worn by pioneers on the Oregon trails, or by a shirt made and printed with fabric that had fabric printed with Samoan tapa designs. There are numerous accounts of visitors to Hawaii ordering shirts made with Asian textiles, and the truth of the original prototype is lost to history. However, we do know that they were brightly colored shirts made with flat collars and worn untucked were popular enough to be marketed to tourists. Although colorful clothes made from Asian textiles were worn in Honolulu at this time, the Hawaiian shirt was unusual in comparison to what was typically accepted attire. Morgado noted it was peculiar in terms of collar construction, generous fit, and straight hem, in addition to the intention to be worn outside one's pants rather than tucked inside of it. Morgado further argues that the use of local iconography, such as Diamond Head or the Aloha Tower, was unique and set it apart from other shirts at the time. One of the downtown shops was owned by Japanese immigrant and tailor Koichiro Miyamoto, known as Musashiya, the shirt maker. Historians note that he made an early version of the Hawaiian shirt in 1933 or 1934 when a client custom ordered a European-style shirt made of Japanese yukata cloth. Musashiya worked with advertisement guru George Mellon to help him break into the haole consumer market. Mellon used broken English to ghostwrite newspaper advertisements, as well as a book called How Musashiya, the Shirt Maker, Broke into Print. It was published in 1927. And this, according to Amai, gave him an air of quote-unquote Oriental authenticity at a time when there was anti-Japanese sentiment. That tactic made Musashiya a local celebrity and helped transform his dry goods shop into a tourist destination. One of Miyamoto's business neighbors was Ellery Chun, who also owned a dry goods stores and placed orders with local tailors to produce similar shirts. In 1935, Musashiya Shoten, who was different from Musashiya the shirt maker, placed an ad in the Honolulu Advertiser newspaper for Aloha shirts. It was not uncommon at this time to append the word Aloha to all types of goods for sale, including tea sets, games, and other items. But in this case, the name stuck, and in 1936, Ellery Chun registered Aloha shirt as his trademark. The trademark expired in 1956 when Aloha shirts with a lowercase e became synonymous with Hawaiian shirts. Residents had little interest in the Aloha shirt, which was viewed as a tourist commodity. Indeed, Hawaiian shirt manufacturers marketed the shirts to tourists, and it took efforts like Aloha Wednesdays in 1948, legislative endorsement in 1962, Aloha Fridays in 1965, an endorsement from the Hawaiian Chamber of Commerce in 1969, and a change in design in the 1960s to shift local perception of the shirt as appropriate local attire. However, what type of shirt to wear was a matter of taste and identity. Arthur argues that by the 1960s, local identity was well entrenched at the time, and the Aloha shirt followed two design paths, one for locals and the other for tourists and other outsiders, end quote. The reverse shirt, made with the backside of the shirt fabric facing out, emerged in the 1960s and became a marker of local identity. Reverse shirts gave the shirt a faded, muted look, similar to one that had been worn in the sun for years, which appealed to local consumers. In my research, I interviewed a number of Hawaiian local and haole men about their preferences for Hawaiian shirts. And interviews with Hawaiian and local men about their shirt preferences demonstrate that reverse shirts are used to identify one as Hawaiian or local, that is, the in-group. Participants note that reverse shirts are, quote, synonymous with locals, was the de facto Hawaiian shirt worn, and the attractiveness of the muted colors. For example, Doug says reverse shirts were all he knew while growing up, while John said that he likes them because they are not too bright, emphasizing the reverse shirt's muted colors. Specifically, Hawaiian and local men noted how the Hawaiian shirt is a tool used to communicate their ethnic identity due to the hues, motifs, or general symbolism and geographic origin of the shirt. They discussed how the aesthetics need to relate culturally to the Hawaiian Islands and helps identify them as from Hawaii. For Ethan, the shirt shows his ethnic pride. He says, "It's like a Hawaiian flag for me. I can wear it and people know where I'm from. It expresses the Hawaiian side for me." Local and Hawaiian men also note using motifs that represent the accuracy and uniqueness of Hawaii to show their local identity in shirts. Doug also discusses his ethnicity in relation to Hawaiian shirts. Quote, "I like prints that tell a story, a mo'oelo. I like the uniqueness of the story they want to tell through the print. Definitely want to wear that to represent our Hawaiian culture. The motif has to represent something cultural or nature. Color tones are more earth tones, the browns, the greens, the blacks, the blues. And Andrew says, being local, I don't want to be too obvious. I don't like to stand out. I generally prefer earth tones, greens, and browns. I stay away from prints like surfing, tiki, flowers. I go for leafy or kapa designs. Both show I'm local and not a tourist. Local men also prefer using motifs that represent the accuracy and uniqueness of Hawaii to show their local identity. Sean identifies as local what he calls a real mixed poi dog, a local expression of mixed ethnicity. He prefers, quote, simple colors, not flashy, with a strong and nice pattern and a simple print. And he likes Polynesian tattoos, motifs, reverse shirts, and prefers something that he says is not as loud. To show local identity, Lyle wears Polynesian shirts, dark blues, blacks, dark green, some reds. And Brian references a classic popular design, the Ren Spooner reverse flag shirts. This is a design that includes the Hawaiian state flag, the state bird, which is the nene goose, and the state flower, the hibiscus. Both Hawaiian and local men noticed an abhorrence for what they call touristy shirts and made judgments based on comparisons between shirts worn by the in-group versus the out-group. They noted they would not wear them ever, unless it was as a costume to imitate tourists, and that tourist shirts present what people think Hawaii is about, but not actually what it is. They noticed tourists prefer ABC shirts. ABC is a popular convenience store in Waikiki. As Amador notes, quote, tourists start with ABC stores. You know what ABC means? All bright colors, he jokes. He continues. A haole friend from the mainland asked me to send him a Hawaiian shirt and sent me to the ABC store. He said they have the best designs and colors. He liked the brightness and boldness. If you want the most floral, brightest, boldest, you go to ABC. So, local and Hawaiian men typically describe their preferences for Hawaiian shirts in binary terms, pointing to the difference between their aesthetic and those of tourists, and not uncommonly suggesting that the tourist aesthetic is undesirable. However, on the other hand, haole descriptions appear more complex, as their responses more generally involve descriptions of negotiating identity rather than simply preferring one aesthetic over the other when they move to Hawaii. Will, when he moved to Hawaii, says he liked bright colors, but was told early on what types of Hawaiian shirts were appropriate to wear to not be seen as a tourist. He says, when I moved to Hawaii, I bought the ABC shirts, but was told really quickly not to wear those shirts. I still like color, but now I have to think if it's okay to wear since I'm a resident and not a tourist. When Fritz moved to Hawaii, he bought shirts for what he says was the kitsch, the mainland idea of Hawaiian shirts. Then he says he was exposed to other professionals and saw more fitted tailored cuts. He notes his change was due to identifying as a resident, and he was specific to say that he does not identify as local but as a resident in Hawaii, and it had to be local appropriate. Similarly, when Paul moved to Honolulu, he purchased a Hilo Hattie shirt. He says it was fun, loud colors, but he doesn't wear it anymore. They're out of place here. I want a shirt that ordinary people wear, end quote. He now wears Ren Spooner shirts, which are the typical downtown Honolulu businessman uniform. Here we see him wearing the Ren Spooner Lahaina Sailor shirt, a popular reverse shirt. Similarly, Georges remembers, I didn't know haole identity existed. You know about European and other ethnicities, but eventually learned what haole is and when it is appropriate to use the word. I don't want to be that person, a typical white person, end quote. One of the methods that he uses to be the good haole is through his choice in Hawaiian shirts and says, as you pick up on cues, you arrive and you're a tourist and you associate Hawaii with these cheesy signals. Concurrently, I negotiated my haole identity dress. For me, it was a professional identity to some extent. The shirt helped negotiate educational, business, and social realms in Hawaii as a haole. Yes, I'm a white person, but I have sort of developed some cultural sensitivities of the issues that plague Hawaii on occasion. Like other haoles, Vaughn learned about codes through longtime residents of Hawaii. He married a Kama'aina haole, a longtime white person who has lived here, and she bought shirts for him and told him the do's and don'ts of Aloha shirts. He learned about the brands and where to buy shirts from colleagues. He observed, quote, "The more you learn, the more it's intimidating. You go to Macy's and there's a whole department floor, a whole floor dedicated to Aloha shirts. It's far more sophisticated than you will believe," end quote. Vaughn relates his choice in Aloha shirts to being an outsider rather than being a haole. He says that white comes into it because of the cliche of white tourists in garish shirts, but he likens the coatings of Aloha shirts to the coating of dress in England, where he was born. He was born into a working class background and learned what is acceptable in forms of dress: the collars, the ties, the cuffs, the buttons, the shirt pockets, etc., regarding class and middle upper class careers. He says it's a rite of passage because in London you learn what is appropriate and you do the same in Hawaii. He says it's a uniform. The Hawaiian shirt is the de facto uniform in Hawaii, both literally and figuratively. The complexity of Hawaii's history with colonization and militarization has resulted in a site of tension in the types of shirts that are selected by residents. From the in-group, the codes are a natural part of everyday living, learned and understood early in life in a land that is both tourist destination and home. For the out-group, the codes are a new learning experience for people who have seen Hawaii mostly in movies or tourist brochures. Hawaiian shirts have become a marker identity and a knot of ethnicity, culture, and aesthetics. Aesthetics of the shirt are used to not only differentiate in-group versus out-group members, but also to establish one's unique identity within the complexity of history and culture in Hawaii. For haoles, the process of moving from out-group to in-group is facilitated by the Hawaiian shirt and helps diminish negative differences, but also creates an identity as a good haole. As Doug says, it's kind of like there's an entry-level Aloha attire and then Premier. Those that come here for the short stay, they get the ABC shirt. Those who embrace the culture, it's almost a rite of passage to be able to wear beyond entry-level shirts. It shows you are embracing the culture. You kind of earn your localness. Thank you very much for listening, and I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have now.
All right, thank you, Dr. Reilly, for that great presentation. So as Dr. Reilly said, he'll be taking questions. If you'd like to put it in the Q&A, we'll read those off. But I'd like to start off with my own question for Dr. Reilly.
Sure.
In the mainland, I've attended a countless number of luau's for different occasions, events to celebrate Hawaiian culture in college, or a themed Christmas party at work. At many of these luau's, people would often show up in loud Aloha shirts and be given plastic leis. This used to bother me a little because it seemed sort of inauthentic. However, over the years, I have come to accept and even embrace these type of events, as I realized it was more about having an experience, regardless of how authentic the food or the fashion was. So to me, a mark of a good luau event, at least for the mainland, was whether or not you felt the Aloha spirit. And beyond that, I sort of embrace the wearing of tourist Aloha shirts, almost like a competition of who had the loudest Aloha shirt. So my question is, what do you think about this attempt at experiencing Hawaiian culture in this type of setting, even if it's highly emulated?
I think that is part of what the perception of what Hawaii is and what has been marketed, especially in the 40s and 50s, as the Hawaiian experience, or the experience when you come to Hawaii. One thing that I want to note is in the 50s and 60s, tiki culture became very popular. And I think what you're describing might be part of tiki culture, which was a look at the exotic as something that was fascinating to wear, to put on for a good time. But it's been noted that tiki culture includes a lot of different cultures that were viewed as exotic at the time: Hawaiian, Polynesian, Mexican, Samoan, Aboriginal, African. And so while it might not be a true authentic experience of Aloha or the Hawaiian shirt, probably the intent of sharing the experience of luau gathering together is the authentic part. And I think that's what you were describing was it was what was intended, whether it was quote unquote accurate or not.
Yeah. I remember the most authentic mainland luau I had, they actually flew a pig out from Hawaii to
Mm.
have it roasted in an imu pit. And real
And I say
flowers
that's
too.
impressive.
Yes, but
Underground,
very expensive.
how
I can
was it
understand the
roasted?
plastic lays and
Was it roasted underground in the emu?
yes, it
Oh,
was
that's
roasted
very,
in
I
the
mean, that's
emu. This
pretty
is in
authentic.
Colorado.
That's pretty
Yes.
authentic. Yeah.
Yes, emu pit. All right, so we actually have some questions in the Q&A now. The first one is, what do women tourists seek out? I guess as far as fashion or aloha shirts.
There's a combination of what we see. Some of it is from the ABC stores. It's the same fabric, same prints that are made into dresses, or wearing aloha shirts, whether it's designed for men or women. I see a bunch of that. Usually what we see is we see couples who are matching, where the shirts and the dresses are the same type of fabric, same type, and are worn together for, you see this especially on Waikiki. And so that's very common to wear. Mu'u is starting to get become more popular. There's been a resurgence in a number of years of the mu'u, what's sometimes called the muumuu or the mu'u dress. And that has become much more popular, especially on Waikiki, as people are embracing or wearing what is sold in Waikiki or what they have viewed as appropriate from what information they have. But we see a whole of a
All
different
right.
variety of things. There are even some companies that will rent out the mu'u to wear for a day so that you don't have to buy one, you can wear one.
Mm.
We even have the
Or
mu'u.
like renting a tuxedo or
I
something.
like renting a tuxedo for the day. You can wear it, have your
Yeah.
experience. There's even a museum here, the Mumu Museum, that does mumu swaps, and people can, come in, swap out a mu or borrow one for the day, rent it out.
All right, next question. Does Dr. Riley have a favorite design for aloha shirts that he prefers?
Oh, that's a really good question. So on the one hand, I do like the kitsch of the 1960s, the bright colors, the fabrications that were made out of a rough fabric known as bark cloth. Um, and that's more like the mainland perception of what it is. I think those are fun in and of themselves. But for today, I do have number of shirts. I look for shirts that are made by local designers that are reflective of living here now for 20 years and understanding the culture and the difference. For example, I'm wearing a shirt that tells Mo'oelo. And this was made by a young designer named David Shepard. He makes shirts that are tell a story about Hawaii. And this story is about a particular flower that one part of the flower, they're the same variety, but one part is made as found by the sea, and one part of the flower is found up in the mountains. And when they come together, they tell the story of lovers reuniting. So they're put together as they're put together and tell the story about a Hawaiian story about lovers reuniting who were separated. So I really like his shirts, and I do have a shirt back here. This shirt, I don't know if you can see it. This shirt is also made by him because again, it tells a mo'oelo. This one tells a story. I don't know if you can see on here, but there's little snails in here. And this one is called the singing, the Hawaiian translation is the singing of the shells. And it is about these slugs that are in, sorry, these slugs that are endangered and are going to extinct, and there's other environmental problems with it. So I like the stories that he's telling about Hawaii, therefore. But I don't know. I think I appreciate all different types because of either their background, their history, what the story is of, what they wore. So I just appreciate Hawaiian shirts for what they are.
And this is my favorite shirt, Hawaiian shirt that I'm wearing by Mānoa.
Mhm.
And it's the theme is sort of ocean theme. It has a lot of waves and shells and stuff
Yeah.
like that because I like the ocean. So somebody got it as a gift for me because they knew that was my interest. So this is more of a modern aloha shirt design. All right. Another question is sort of the same question about women wear, the equivalent of women wear for aloha shirts. What else? How do you see the Palaka plaid textile fit into the continuum of Aloha attire?
Perfect. Okay, so this is palaka. This is a type of plaid that's very common in Hawaii and is known as the denim of Hawaii. So in the plant days of the plantation, laborers who were working on the plantations would wear what was known as a jack shirt. It was a combination jacket and shirt that was made out of this fabric that's become known as palaka. The word palaka has evolved over the years in different forms. Word palaka was probably a transliteration of the word frock. The sailors who came over were wearing frocks. But the frocks they were wearing, to our knowledge, were not plaid. What was described were solid colors. So the word palaka, probably frock. Eventually, palaka became associated with the shirts that the laborers were wearing on the plantations. It's a heavy twill. It's protective equipment or something that protects you when you're out in the sun all day or when you are also working in agricultural areas. And that became known as a palaka shirt. And now palaka is used as a term for anything that has this particular print on it. It is thought that palaka shirts and how they were made were one of the influences on the eventual design of the Aloha shirt, so that there is a long part of the history of where did this shirt come from, and it's thought that it might be part of that. Today, we see palaka in its own term becoming really popular again with local designers using palaka as clothing of something that's really unique in Hawaii that is found only here and that designers are using to showcase uniqueness and originality as Hawaiian designers are becoming more recognized around the world.
Yeah. So the next question, what are the typical fabrics used for tourists versus locals? Linen, cotton, silk, polyester. And I sort of have a follow-up question about materials too. So go
I
for that
think
one first.
Okay, I think for all types of people, you'll find every version of that. In Waikiki, you might see more of the cotton shirts or polyester shirts because they tend to be cheaper to produce. You can now definitely find silk shirts that are popular, but for the most part, it's cotton or some type of polyester or a synthetic that is being used to make shirts now. Maybe a modal, which is or rayon print that's popular. Those are the two primary ones, though it's not uncommon to see shirts made from all different types of fabrics.
Okay. And my excuse me, my follow-up question is modern Hawaiian fashion draws significantly from traditional Hawaiian fashion. So kapa cloth was a traditional Hawaiian textile made primarily from beating the bast tree bark of the wauke tree, which is like a paper mulberry, into a vegetable felt, to which often was applied natural dyes and stamps of typically Hawaiian motifs. So this kapa making art was sort of lost in Hawaii for almost a century. And recently it was revived like around the 1970s, I think. And recently I've seen kapa cloth mainly as like art pieces or for outfits for traditional hula dancing performances, things like that. I've even seen a few men on the islands wearing a traditional malo, like a loincloth
Right.
in public. So my question is, have you seen or do you think we will see more traditional made kapa, which is a very time-consuming process to make, emerge as a commonly used textile in modern Hawaiian fashion?
With kapa, no, it is very time consuming to make. It was usually made, and it could take from beating the vake and letting it air dry, cleaning it, designing it. One of the issues, though, is that it disintegrates in water, and so it's not very durable as a pounded fabric, a bark cloth. But I do know of a student right now whose intention, and she's working with how to use the vake plant to use that fiber in a different way to make it something more practical that you can wear. I do see that there are more Hawaiian men who are wearing the malo. once in a while, I'll see someone who wears it. Usually it's for a special occasion or some type of ritual, but I don't see it as everyday wear. Now, on the idea of kappa and the designs on them, one of my projects is I'm interviewing Native Hawaiian designers about cultural values of using and how they design clothing based on different cultural values. And one of the things, like Micah Kamahoali'i talked about, was the purpose of starting his brand was that he wanted to educate people on what is authentic Hawaiian tattoo. He says there'd been a long period where it was just the mismatch of Polynesian tattoos that people didn't really understand, which was Hawaiian, which was Samoan, which was Tongan. And so he went back to his family's history of tattoos that were used on skin and on kapa. Now he's just transporting it and translating it onto, or placing it onto fabrics that people can wear as a means to educate people of this is what authentic Hawaiian designs are. And I think the shirt you're wearing by Mānoa probably
Yeah.
has the same
Yeah.
intention behind it as this is what is authentic versus because there's so many different Polynesian cultures. This is what the differences are between them.
Yeah. All right. Next question. I noticed many of the men you quoted did not want to be seen as a tourist in their dress, but do they enjoy that tourists wear the brightly colored shirts even if they themselves do not want to be seen as a tourist?
Some of the men that I interviewed said yes, they do like them, but they might wear them on the mainland. That they realize it's not appropriate here because they'll now be seen as a tourist or an outsider who might be the dumb haole who doesn't know what is appropriate here. Others talked about the kitsch that, like I mentioned earlier, the 1960s, the bright colors, the kitsch is, tacky for the sake of tacky. That appreciation as an aesthetic quality. Again, it depends upon, where they're going to wear it. You probably wouldn't wear it to work, but maybe to a party or when you're on the mainland, as a big sign to say, hey, I just came from Hawaii. Does that answer your question?
Well, let's hope it does. Next question. Has Dr. Reilly studied the recent trend of anti-government protesters wearing Aloha shirts? Does he have any thoughts on the impact in Hawaii?
Anti-government protesters. Are you talking about the hate groups that are wearing them? Is that what you're talking about? Because there's a number of hate groups that have appropriated the Aloha shirt
Mm.
as part of it. And in fact, Marcia Morgado now has a paper out that's in a book called The Handbook of Men's Fashion. And it does delve into this issue of hate groups appropriating it as a form when they're not about aloha. And I think the intention, so when we talk about there's Hawaiian shirts and aloha shirts. Aloha is about love. It is a feeling of embracing goodness and seeing goodness in other people and doing the best that you can do. So the question is what they're wearing representative of aloha? And I think it's one of those appropriations that is not accurate for what this shirt stands for and should stand for.
Next question. You started the Zoom giving credit to Punahou for the first Aloha shirt. Is that a true statement? And how did the usage of the shirt progress from that little start to today's present shirt?
So yeah, Punahou is one of the elite schools here, private schools in Hawaii. And one of the origin stories is that it may have started with students who went to Punahou school, who went to a tailor and asked for shirts made out of Asian textiles. I think it was yukata cloth. But there's also other stories. Seems like there's many different versions of where the original came from, the Thousand Mile shirt, whether it came from a shirt that was made and printed with tapa designs from Samoa. it fits in with the legend and the history, but the accuracy, I don't think we'll ever know who actually made the very first Hawaiian shirt. I think there were a number of people who were experimenting, making shirts out of different fabrics, different textiles at the time. Remember, Hawaii in the 20s and 30s was very multicultural. You had people from all over the world who were living here. You had immigrants from China, Japan, Korea, Puerto Rico, Portugal, who has ancestors that moved here. They moved here for work opportunities, and they brought with them a lot of different fabrics, a lot of different textiles. So one of the other stories was the Barong Tagalog, a Filipino shirt that's made out of pineapple cloth that is intended to be worn outside of the shirt. So it's probably a factor of all these, but was the very first shirt made from students in Punahou? It's hard to really go back and say, because it's always a story. I heard this from somebody else.
Do you think the popularity of Moana and Dwayne Johnson being open about his Polynesian heritage affected people's perceptions or interest in Hawaiian culture?
Yeah, I would say that they did because I think it exposed them to, like with the movies, family life here and some of the family values. And I think people started taking probably more of an interest in Hawaii and Polynesia and learning about navigation and the stories of the Polynesian islands. I think people like Dwayne The Rock and Jason Momoa, who have been I mean, Jason Momoa wore what? He was wearing a malo on one of the nighttime talk shows. I mean, bringing
Yeah.
Hawaiian culture to, this is what people wear, this is the history of it, and bringing attention through his clothing to Hawaiian issues that are here. I
Yeah.
can say that in the 1970s, there was what was known as the Second Hawaiian Renaissance, and this was a time when laws that had forbade the speaking of English, laws that had outlawed Hawaiian culture,
Are you
such
speaking
as,
of Hawaiian, you mean?
I'm sorry, what?
Outlawed the speaking of Hawaiian, you mean, not
Yeah,
English.
Hawaii, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had outlawed cult. Hula was banned at one time. And in the 1970s, the Second Hawaiian Renaissance began. And this was the time when these laws were changed. Hawaiians started looking at their identity again, looking at finding ways to understand where their histories that had been lost. And there were a lot of designers who were coming out with a Hawaiian sense of purpose now and looking at designing from a Hawaiian perspective. Nakeu Avai is one of them. He's considered the grandfather of Hawaiian fashion, and Alan Akina is another who started designing and putting images of Hawaiian women on clothing, which had never been done before because it was either banned or socially not acceptable for a long period of time.
All right. Next question. I've been visiting Oahu since working here in the mid 90s and will be relocating from the mainland to Windward Side in August. I've brought many friends to Bailey's Antiques to choose a shirt. It's one of my favorite things to do with each visit. The shirts they choose provide a unique window into their personality. I'm joyfully surprised 9 out of 10 visits. Thank you for your presentation. So I guess that's more of a comment. Are you
Thank you.
familiar with Bailey's?
Oh, I'm very familiar with Bailey's. Bailey's, if you're ever in Hawaii, Bailey's Antiques on Kapahulu. It's a small store, and there's probably like 10,000 shirts in there. You have everything from the vintage silkies of the 1940s. And a silky, let me find one here. Here's a good example of a silky. So a silky shirt was made out of a type of rayon that was smooth. It felt like silk. That formula is not used anymore to make rayon. There's been legends and stories that they're not made anymore because of a fire that destroyed the formula at DuPont. There's no evidence, however, that there was actually a fire. It seems to be just much more legend. Probably in all likelihood, making that type of rayon was expensive because rayon is it's expensive to make. Rayon is a combination of natural and chemicals mixed together to make a fiber. Other fibers became more prominent at a time and just they vanished. But the silkies, he has the silkies there, and they can run for, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for a vintage silky shirt. So I tell anyone who's on the mainland and is listening, go into your closets, your mama's closets, your grandparents' closets, and look to see if they ever visited Hawaii in the 30s or 40s. They you might have a very expensive silky shirt in there. However, on the other side, they also have, shirts that are made from polyester. They have the whole history of shirts from the 70s, from the 60s, contemporary shirts that are made out of cotton, tourist type of shirts, local type of shirts. It is an educational and historic experience just to go in there and just see the overwhelming different number of designs. Like one of the people I interviewed, I think it was Vaughn, he says, when he goes to Macy's, he could not believe that there was a whole store that was dedicated, a whole floor that was dedicated to Aloha shirts. And it just shows how popular they are here and the different varieties. I do remember him describing it as wine. Like when you learn about wine, you think, oh, it just is red or white. And then you learn there's all different varietals and all different flavors. And he says it's more complex than you actually realize on the surface.
Yeah. We got a comment here. Happy to report I've regularly seen a man surfing in Amalo at Ala Moana Magic Island, which it's funny, which isn't very traditionally Hawaiian. I mean, the pre-contact Hawaiians would surf naked,
Right. Yeah.
probably because their malo is made out of kapa and it would disintegrate in the water. So, but that's cool. It must be a cloth malo that he's surfing in.
I would suspect it would because in saltwater, unless he's making a new malo every time he goes surfing, because once you get it wet, it's going to disintegrate, and then he will be gliding the waves naked. And interesting, just on a side note, I think that is it is thought that I think Captain Cook, when he was transversing the Pacific, that's how he came upon Hawaii because he saw people surfing and followed them to figure out where they were going.
Yeah. Next question. I haven't had the chance to visit Hawaii yet, but I do love some of the prints I've seen. Any tips on sources or names for women's shirts and dresses?
Yeah. So, am I allowed to say brand names on here and give advice, or am I allowed to do that? That's
Andrew or Kaylee, is there any rules for that?
I would say what you can do is you can email
She
me
said sure. Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, so David Shepard is one person I mentioned earlier. I'm wearing his shirt. He makes and he does the ones with Elo that tell different stories about Hawaiian shirts. He's good. Ren Spooner is another brand that's very popular and good. I think you can also find clothing from Summershi Iggy, who is of 10 Tomorrow, does make Hawaiian shirts. Tori Richard is one of the bigger brands who deals with a more luxury tourist market, more a resort wear market. You also have a spate of Native Hawaiian designers who are making clothes as well. I mean, you can look at Pomahina. You can look at Kini Zamora. Ari South is another one. There's a number of local designers who are making it. So I would just ask you, what type of shirt do you want, or what type of dress do you want? Because there's a whole variety. And if you want something that's made in Hawaii, look for someone who is working here and has their own business here.
And the next question, has the ethnic mix changed a lot since the 1930s? I guess they're referring to Hawaii.
The ethnic mix in Hawaii right now, it's pretty much the same. It's about, in general terms, 1/3 white, 1/3 Polynesian, 1/3 Asian. And then there's other African American, Black, Native American mixed in there, but it's generally in those thirds that are there. And so that has remained, I think, pretty much the same. I couldn't say exactly sure since I know what the population was in the 30s, but it's pretty much been like that where there is no one dominant ethnic group in Hawaii.
Yeah, I know Native Hawaiians have sort of fluctuated through the decades. Like
Right.
at one point, there was more Hawaiians living outside of Hawaii than in Hawaii, but I think it reversed the trends lately.
And part of this is also people are rediscovering their ancestry because during the plantation era, like I said, you could get your job would depend upon your ethnicity. So many people who could pass as another ethnicity would get a better paying job. For example, if you were Portuguese, you would have a management position. So I know some people who he was surprised to learn that he is not Portuguese, but Sicilian. His grandfather revealed this on his deathbed. And this was because Sicilians would have to work in the fields. Portuguese would have management positions. So people are starting to figure out who they are. There's been a long history, especially when Hawaiians were, their culture was outlawed. They were being erased, that many people denied their Hawaiian ancestry. And it's only been recently that people are finding out maybe they are Hawaiian or starting to embrace it again. I mean, there's been a whole generation of people who experienced um, the horrors of life based because of simply who they were, living in their own land.
Yeah. All right, another sort of comment here. Tell us about the shirts behind you. I mean, you've already
sure, yeah.
talked about a few, but maybe you can pick out another one
Okay.
that's
So this
unique.
one is one of our earliest shirts, and this one is from 1937. And so so first of all, I want to say these are coming from the historic fashion collection at the University of Hawaii. Now, what I want you to look at this, you see that this made with coconut buttons, right? Okay, so that's very common. But if you see the pattern, what is the fabric showing you? These are like postcards or little flyers that were intended to show, what you would do when you came to Hawaii. So you had Lay Day, which was May Day, May 1st. You can go swimming, different events you can do, learning how to surf. And so this was intended as literally a postcard that you could wear and take back to the mainland to show that you had been here and that you had been traveling. Other ones. So when we talk about Japanese fabric, this one is made out of a juban, and a juban is the undergarment of a kimono. It's not meant to be seen in public, but it's very fascinating that they use these bright colors to make an aloha shirt that, embrace the time of, bright colors and fun. But again, it comes from Japanese textiles. We also have, and then this is fascinating. So there was a phenomenon of upholstery shirts, and this one was made by a local drapery shop called Wong's Drapery Shop. And this one is from the 30s or 40s, I believe. Let me just check. This one's from the 1940s. And upholstery material that you would use for your draperies or curtains weren't really wearable. I mean, it's too hot to wear and they're not very comfortable. So they're made more as souvenirs, but it's argued that at the time, the fabrics that were used for upholstery had these nice floral colors to it. They were tropical scenes. And it's argued that, this is where the idea for tropical scenes of Hawaii came from the textiles that were used in home decor at the time. So again, we see the wooden buttons, which is common. And if you go by Wong's Drapery Shop now, they have a shirt that's made out of upholstery fabric right in front store. So we get some of these early versions as well. Let's see what we have here. Okay. Then we get into what else do we have? Yeah. Then in the 60s, there was the fascination for bar cloth. There was and this is part of the tiki culture that I was talking about, what was considered the exotic. So it was made to look like bar cloth or kapa that had been pounded with traditional cultural designs that were made on it. This one's from Nani, Honolulu. Again, we see again the wooden buttons on it. But this one's from the 1950s. So 1950s, we see a lot with the different textures. If you weren't going to make kapa, you could have something that felt like it, which was called a bar cloth fabric that was becoming very popular. So we see a lot of browns at this time. And then we have the 70s. And so, the 70s was the disco period. We have now we have a mixture of textiles that's coming in. Polyester was becoming very prominent at the time. The copyright for polyester, the trademark for polyester, the formula had expired. Anybody could make it now. So in the 70s, we had a lot of different polyester fabrics. This is a long sleeve Hawaiian shirt that's based, very disco at the time with the long pointed collars, again, the wooden buttons, and but it was a different iteration that mixed this fashion at the time, this trend of disco fashion with Hawaiian scenes and imagery on it. You got a nice little back right there.
Yeah. I had a shirt just like that in the late 70s when I was a
Oh,
kid.
did you?
Yeah.
Polyester? Polyester
Yep.
as well? Yeah.
Yeah.
This one is again, it's one of those reverse shirts that we talked about. So the reverse shirt is made with the quote unquote wrong side of the fabric out. So if you look at this is the brighter color, but when it's made with the wrong side of the fabric printed out, it's more muted. It's more now a marker of local identity. And this one was used as what was called Hawaii, the Hawaii industry has a category of clothing called identity apparel. We would call them uniform. So what people were wearing. And this one was, I believe he wore it as a uniform for, Foodland, one of the grocery stores here. It was the traditional, or was what they were using as
That looked familiar.
uniforms at the time. So he donated it with his name tag. And then from the 70s onwards, Hawaiian designers were designing with from their history and their experience. And one of the designers was named Mamo. Mamo would use Hawaiian quilt patterns on her shirt. So Hawaiian quilting is similar. It's done the same process as American quilting, but instead of the designs are more symmetrical and they're in different patterns and shapes of local flowers, fauna, and different scenes from Hawaii. So this one has more of a native Hawaiian presence to it, or native Hawaiian influence on it. So you have that as well. And today we see now people are more cognizant about what they're wearing, and we see the mo'olelo coming through in different stories as young designers and new designers are using mo'olelo to tell the story of Hawaii or to tell the story of their people and their experience, as we see with Native Hawaiian designers.
All right. So we're just about out of time here. I think we just have like two more comments, really.
Okay.
One is the best place to purchase Aloha shirts is the Salvation Army for cost savings. They have all the different ones, he says.
This is true. Salvation Army has so the retail stores, the thrift stores that we have here, have now understand that people are collecting Aloha shirts. And so what used to be a $10 shirt is now going for $30, $40. If you're on the mainland, go there because you might find some good deals there.
And then the last comment, glad to hear shout outs to our local Project Runway contestants, Kini Zamora and Ari South.
Right. Both were on Project Runway maybe about 10 years or more so ago, or the television show where they competed in a fashion design competition, and they were from Hawaii, came back and started their own businesses and are successful in their designs and their products.
All right, so that's the end of our program. I want to thank Dr. Reilly for his presentation and answering all our questions. And again, mahalo and aloha. Thanks for everybody for joining us.
Thank you. It was very nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.